Bulls Nation, we've talked about a few of our players already in terms of the off-season and potentially the end of the season. And this is another player that we have yet to discuss that I really do want to discuss heading into the off-season. And I think it deserves its own video for a variety of reasons. We acquired probably the heist of the season in terms of Daniel Theis, a player that was obviously traded from the Boston Celtics over to the Chicago Bulls and has done very, very well in terms of his 2020-2021 season, especially playing for the Chicago Bulls. But in saying that, as an unrestricted free agent, Daniel Theis will have a lot of offers on his table to come and play for their teams. And I want to talk about Daniel Theis and whether I believe he should be a Chicago Bull or not next season, and whether or not it is very likely it can get done. So without further ado, let's talk about it in this video. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show, and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a Chicago Bulls related video, and this time it is discussing yet again another one of our players. We've talked about Larry Markkinen already and his future that could potentially be in doubt for the Bulls. We've talked about Patrick Williams and what I believe his next step should be in the NBA in his second season. And the third player I'm going to be discussing in relation to this is Daniel Theis. In the end, we have so many players that could be on this team and so many players that could potentially lead this team, and Daniel Theis at this point in time is on that boat. He could be a player that could stay, commit his future to the Chicago Bulls, or it could be a player that we could see on the way out of Chicago and into any other team that is lucky enough to have him. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about Daniel Theis. Did you enjoy the season that he had for the Chicago Bulls? Obviously, I don't feel like a lot of you would have watched him on the Celtics, but if you did watch him on the Celtics as well, did you enjoy his season overall? Obviously, what are your thoughts on his contract? How much should he get paid? Should he get a multi-year deal? Or overall, if you don't think he's good enough for Chicago or you think there's better out there, again, all of these things, please let me know in the comments below. But without further ado, let's discuss Daniel Theis. I think many people like Daniel Theis because of the trade that we actually managed to get a player like Daniel Theis on this team. We gave up Luke Cornett, and I believe we gave up Mo Wagner for Daniel Theis and Javonte Green. That was the trade the Chicago Bulls made. And till this day, this is probably one of the best trades of the entirety of that NBA trade period. From all trades around the NBA, that was probably one of the better trades, if not the best trade you could possibly make in terms of the trade deadline. We absolutely stole one of the Celtics' best, I guess, interior defenders. Their best center, of course, but an interior defender, a player that can do a lot of things on the floor. And I think since that day, he's been an instant favorite because he's brought a lot to this team that we have not seen in a long time, and especially for the price, for the trade that we got him at, it felt like we did something intelligent. The Chicago Bulls did something smart. They ended up going after a player that the Celtics didn't want to go into the luxury tax for, and we acquired him when we're well under the luxury tax as well. This was a perfect deal, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bulls to make. We're going to have to find out how long this is going to last, if this is going to be a deal that's worthwhile long term, or if it's benefited us for the short term. But Daniel Theis has brought some things that the Chicago Bulls have not seen in quite some time, probably since the Joakim Noah era of the NBA, where he was gritty, he was defensive, he was strong, he was capable, and not only that, he was able to have responsibility on the offensive end as well, and especially with the balls in his hand, he was capable of doing a lot of things on the floor. The basketball game is a funny thing. Sometimes it's the simple things that could mean everything to a team. And in terms of the NBA, in terms of Daniel Theis, in terms of the Chicago Bulls, Daniel Theis is not a flashy player. Daniel Theis is not going to be a player that does these windmill dunks, does all these fantastic moves, the excitement, high reel player. He's a player that does the simple things very, very well, and that is something that we don't see a lot in the NBA. And again, with that physical toughness on the defensive side, he's a very capable NBA player, and he's an NBA player that I feel like many teams in the NBA will want to play for their team. It's as simple as that. He's that type of player. He might not get the biggest contract in the world, but I can guarantee you there'll be multiple teams ready to knock on Daniel Theis's door and say, look, We need a player like you on our team. We need a player that will be gritty defensively. We need a player that will bring strength and consistency every single night on the defensive end. We need someone that is capable on the offensive end. We need someone that's going to be versatile. We need someone that can guard the perimeter, guard the interior at a high level. We need someone that is a capable passer. We need someone that can make shots when the shot is open for you. And Daniel Theis does all of those things in abundance. His season average for the Chicago Bulls, and I believe for the Boston Celtics this season as well in total, was 9.6 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists per game. Obviously, his field goal percentage was 54%, which is a little bit of a decrease from last season, and his three-point percentage also took a pretty big decrease, or I wouldn't say big, a slight decrease as well. Now, the stats of Daniel Theis, I've always said, is really irrelevant to me. Of course, stats mean something in the NBA, but Daniel Theis is a player that can do things that stats don't show, and it's as simple as that. And I've always felt that way with Daniel Theis, and I've said that multiple times, and once again, I'm going to be saying it again. And if he's a Chicago Bull in the future, I'll be saying it for a long time, so get used to it if that's going to be the case. But Daniel Theis is someone that I don't see necessarily as a statistical person. I don't see Daniel Theis, for him to stay on this team, he needs to score 9.6 points or 10 points per game, the exact. I don't see them as a type of that type of player, because he does a lot of things on the floor. He does a lot of things in terms of hustle plays. He does a lot of things in terms of the gritty work, the screens, and obviously just the capableness of being a versatile player. And that's the thing that we try to preach in the NBA these days. That's the reason why NBA for many people is a limitless position game. There are no more positions in the NBA for many people, because people can play from point guard to small forward. People can bring the ball up as a center, like Nikola Jokic often does. He can bring the ball up. Obviously, you've seen that with Anthony Davis as well. There are many players that often go beyond their position and can be positionless, can play the point guard position. And Daniel Theis might not be the perfect example of that, but versatility is something that allows things like this to be said. And Daniel Theis is definitely a versatile player in my eyes. Now, I don't see him as a point guard. I don't see him dribbling up the ball and create a play for someone, but he's definitely someone where if there's an open man, he'll find him. If there's someone cutting into the ring, they'll find him. He's able to make the correct runs. He's able to do the pick and roll efficiently. He's able to take open shots presented to him. And he's just a good player in all retrospects from that. And that is something that I think many teams will see valuable. But enough about what I thought about his season was and how good I think he is. Let's talk about the off-season side of things. Do the Chicago Bulls, or should I say, should the Chicago Bulls give Daniel Theis a contract to remain with the Chicago Bulls? First things first, I'm going to ask that question to you. If you want Daniel Theis to be a Chicago Bull for the long term, let me know in the comments below. If you don't think Daniel Theis is going to be a Chicago Bull for the long term, or if you don't want him to be a Chicago Bull for the long term, let me know in the comments below. Again, there's variety in the Chicago Bulls fan base, and there's a variety in some of our players, and Daniel Theis is definitely a versatile player. What do you guys think about Daniel Theis, and do you think he should be a Chicago Bull for the long term or not? And to get to my answer, once again, it's a very funny thing. I like Daniel Theis. I think he's a great player. I would only acquire him if the price is right. I'd have a strong dislike for players that are overpaid. I'm not saying I hate a player because they're overpaid, but if they're going to be overpaid, we need to make sure it's a necessity on this team. Daniel Theis is a great player. I think his contract will probably be around 10 to 15 million if you're asking me. It won't be a 4-year deal. I feel like for Daniel Theis, it will probably be a 2 to 3 year deal, probably around 10 to 15 million. That's what I'm thinking the contract will be per year. And I think that would be worth it for Daniel Theis, to be honest. I think if you give him 10 million, I don't think that's a bad deal at all. In fact, I think that's a great deal for Daniel Theis. And if that's the case, I would say absolutely, we should give Daniel Theis that second chance. Again, he hasn't really done too many things wrong in terms of why he shouldn't be a Chicago Bull. I feel like he's a fan favorite. And again, we'll know more about Daniel Theis with more time. He's only really had a few months with the Chicago Bulls. We might have not seen the best of Daniel Theis yet for this team, or maybe this is all we're going to see from Daniel Theis on this team. But regardless of the fact, at his short time with the Chicago Bulls, I think he's done a pretty good impact. I think he's made a good impact. But again, there can always be better. There can always be more. There can always be improvements added to this team. Again, this coaching staff, this front office has a plan. And they've expressed openly that they want Daniel Theis to commit to the Chicago Bulls. And in that retrospect, if the Chicago Bulls and the coaching staff wants Daniel Theis to remain here, then I would be foolish to say I don't want Daniel Theis to be here, because they have a plan, and the only way the plan is going to work is if they acquire the talent necessary for them to do that plan accordingly. And I still have faith in Billy Donovan. I still think he's a decent coach. I still have faith in the front office. I know many people have lost faith in all of these things because it's not new anymore. We kind of understand what these people are going to be like. We understand how things are going to go. But in terms of the coaching staff, I still have faith that they could do the right things. And if Coach Donovan or Billy Donovan wants to discuss openly that they want to commit to Daniel Theis, then in my opinion, the court's obviously in the ball's in Daniel Theis' court, but I think the Chicago Bulls should absolutely go for it. And if he doesn't commit to the Chicago Bulls and he does go elsewhere, Lord knows how many teams will be interested. I do think there are many, many teams that will be capable of acquiring a player like Daniel Theis. It's going to be very difficult to keep a hold of him. But again, we just need to do what we can do. We need to express our interest. We need to let Daniel Theis know that we want to keep him here. And hopefully he can make that decision up on his own. It's not going to be an easy decision. It's not going to be a decision that's going to be done lightly. There's going to be many teams battling for him. Maybe even Boston Celtics will go back for him. Who really knows? There's a lot of things that could make Daniel Theis obtainable, or simply it's going to be a loan. But regardless of the fact, I've been very happy with Daniel Theis' production. Free agency is going to be a very interesting time for the Chicago Bulls, but this is someone that I simply cannot complain if he returns to the Chicago Bulls. There are many players that don't deserve another chance, and I've mentioned that in a video recently. There are a lot of players that don't deserve second chances on this team. If Daniel Theis wants to commit to the Chicago Bulls, he's definitely, in my eyes, someone that deserves another chance on this team and definitely deserves his spot. And let's see what can happen from it. In the end, I'm going to leave that here. Of course, there are some negatives to Daniel Theis as well. There's negatives in every player if you really want to find them. But in terms of the whole basic structure of free agency, I think the Chicago Bulls, if the price isn't drastically over his value, I think the Chicago Bulls should give their very best to try and keep him. But at the end of the day, free agency is a funny thing. Anything can happen for any single team. But I truly believe the Chicago Bulls should try their best to keep a player like Daniel Theis, experienced veteran, tough-nosed defender. We haven't seen many of those on our team for quite some time. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Have a wonderful and safe day, Bulls Nation. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy. If you have any video suggestions as well, let me know in the comments below. I'm trying to get to daily videos again, and hopefully you're enjoying them. And we shall see how things go over time. Take care.